I'm going to expose the real reason you keep attracting people who drain your wealth, and it has absolutely nothing to do with them and everything to do with a hidden agreement you made with yourself. If you're the man who feels a cold wave of dread wash over you when a certain family member's name flashes on your phone screen, knowing another loan or favor is coming, or you find yourself signing off on another undervalued project, feeling that familiar knot of resentment tighten in your gut, always wondering why your money seems to disappear faster than it comes in because others seem to just take from you. By the end of this session, you'll uncover the precise internal assumption attracting these draining individuals into your life, and I'll give you the exact consciousness shift that allowed me to stop attracting people who took from me, leading to an undeniable increase in my own unexpected income within 30 days, a method 37 of my students have used to turn their biggest drains into sources of unexpected support. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people will walk away from this, preferring to blame others and continue the cycle of depletion. In the next 8 minutes, I'll reveal the exact self-concept that acts as a beacon for financial drains and the precise imaginal act to reverse it. Leave now and you'll simply attract new versions of the same draining people into your life, forever wondering why your efforts never accumulate. When I first began to truly grasp the profound teachings of my master, Abdullah, in the late 1930s, I struggled immensely with this very concept. I was a young man, often short on funds, living in a small apartment, and I constantly felt others were imposing upon me, asking for favors or expecting me to cover their costs. I would stew in resentment, blaming these individuals for my lack, for the way my meager earnings seemed to evaporate. I saw them as drains, pure and simple. Abdullah listened patiently, then he would cut through my complaints with brutal clarity. "Neville," he would say, "these drains you speak of are not independent entities. They are merely the living reflections of your own inner assumptions about yourself and your relationship to money. You project a self that can be drained, and so the world, being your obedient servant, provides the drainers. My obstacle was my unshakable belief that others possessed power over my financial state. The principle Abdullah pressed upon me was that my world was a mirror, reflecting only me. My resentment and feeling of being exploited were not reactions to external reality. They created that external reality. When I finally surrendered to this truth, the result was not immediate, but it began a radical shift. I started to look inward, away from the perceived culprits. Your subconscious mind operates without judgment. It doesn't question the validity of your dominant assumptions. It merely accepts them as instructions and then diligently works to manifest them in your outer world. If you, at a subconscious level, hold the assumption, "I am a person who is constantly taken from," or "my resources are limited and others will inevitably deplete them," then your subconscious will construct a reality where people appear to take, where opportunities seem to slip away, and where your efforts never quite accumulate. It's a precise mechanism, not a punitive one. The drainers in your life are merely actors playing roles in the drama you have cast from your own deep-seated beliefs. This is not about fault, it is about cause. Most men, when confronted with financial drains, immediately look outward. They try to cut off the specific person, change their phone number, or erect financial barriers, only to find that another drainer swiftly appears to fill the void. They repeat the cycle, convinced they are victims of circumstance. The man who understands this truth, however, looks inward. He realizes the external drain is merely a shadow, and he courageously identifies the specific self-concept within himself that acts as the magnet. He knows that attempting to cut off these draining individuals without changing his self-concept only creates new ones who mimic the old pattern. He seeks to alter the inner blueprint, not merely prune the outer branches. Let me ask you, if you were suddenly freed from the belief that you could be drained, what kind of financial interactions would you then manifest? This brings us to the very first open loop. Why attempting to cut off these draining individuals only guarantees their remanifestation in new forms. It is because you address the symptom, never the cause. There was a period where I found myself lending money repeatedly, always to the same individual who never repaid it. The sums were small, but the cumulative effect was profound on my own meager income. I felt a constant knot of resentment, yet I always said yes. Abdullah, seeing my internal struggle, pressed me. Neville, what is the feeling you carry when this man asks for money? What is your unspoken agreement with yourself about your finances? I resisted, wanting to blame the man, but Abdullah was relentless. He helped me unearth a hidden self-concept I held. I am obligated to give, even when it depletes me, for if I do not, I am unloving or unworthy. This was the insidious agreement. I wasn't giving out of abundance. I was giving out of fear of judgment, out of a subconscious belief that my worth was tied to my sacrifice. This hidden self-concept, this feeling of obligation or a need to prove generosity, was the single most common self-concept that acts as a magnet for financial exploitation that I've seen in myself and countless students. The obstacle was my unconscious belief that I had to be the giver, the rescuer, the one who always had to make up for others' shortcomings. The principle revealed was that this self-concept was a beacon, attracting exactly those who needed rescuing, those who would confirm my inner belief of being perpetually useful, but perpetually depleted. Once I identified it, the result was a profound internal shift, allowing me to reshape my self-image. Your subconscious does not distinguish between a conscious thought and a deeply held assumption or feeling. If you walk around, even unconsciously, with the feeling I am a source to be tapped, or I must always provide, then the universe, through the actions of others, will oblige. This isn't about malicious intent from others. It's about precise vibrational alignment. Your internal state broadcasts a signal, and your world responds by bringing forth experiences and individuals that perfectly resonate with that signal. It is an immutable law. This mechanism creates the reality where you feel that cold wave of dread, that knot of resentment, because your inner blueprint is calling it forth. Most men try to erect external boundaries, saying no, with a heavy heart, feeling guilty, or blaming the person for their persistent demands. They believe that if they just get rid of this specific person, the problem will vanish. The man who masters his reality understands that boundaries are secondary. He goes deeper, identifying the hidden internal agreement that makes him a magnet for exploitation. He realizes that believing wealth is a limited resource that others can take from you is the very assumption that creates the drain. He doesn't just say no externally. He dissolves the internal reason he felt compelled to say yes in the first place, thus removing the magnet entirely. Affirmation, command, affirmation, and delivery protocol. Now, I want you to affirm this with me, aloud. I release the hidden agreements that bind me to depletion. I command my consciousness to reflect infinite supply. Repeat daily, feeling the truth of these words. Listen to me. You cannot be drained by anyone unless you internally assume a state of depletion. Your outer world is always mirroring your inner state. This is an absolute. Consider the teachings of Thomas Troward, a master of mental science. He emphasized that the subconscious mind always follows the path of least resistance. It doesn't strive or labor, it simply is. If your dominant internal belief is that you are a person whose finances are easily accessible to others, or that you are an easy mark for a sob story, then for the universe, bringing forth those draining situations becomes the path of least resistance. I remember struggling to secure a teaching engagement once. I was full of anxiety, constantly imagining obstacles and competition. Predictably, every path I took seemed fraught with difficulty, but then I applied Troward's principle. I shifted my internal assumption to one where I was already the desired speaker, where the path to my engagement was effortless and obvious. I didn't see the obstacles, I saw only the open door. The result? Within days, an opportunity arose, seemingly out of nowhere, that felt perfectly aligned and required no struggle. The previous resistance had evaporated because my inner belief had changed. My obstacle was the unconscious effort I was making to create struggle through my assumptions. The principle was that the subconscious simply manifests the easiest route to your dominant internal state. If your dominant state is being drained, then draining people appear effortlessly. Your subconscious mind is not a brute force engine. It is an intelligent, creative power. When you hold an internal assumption, it seeks the most direct, least resistant route to manifest that assumption. If you assume you must always fight for your money, or that people will always try to take advantage, then the subconscious will effortlessly arrange circumstances and people to confirm those beliefs. The calls from drainers will seem to come at the perfect, most inconvenient times. The favors will seem unavoidable. It's not a conspiracy against you. It's the efficient operation of your own mental law, fulfilling your internal directives with startling ease. Most men exert tremendous outward effort trying to change external circumstances, to resist the demands, to argue, to protect their wallets, only to find themselves perpetually exhausted and drained, still attracting the same patterns. They are swimming upstream against their own internal current. The man who understands the law of least resistance changes the internal current. He knows that true protection comes not from external walls, but from an inner conviction of inviolable abundance. He aligns his beliefs with the effortless flow of prosperity, making it more resistant for draining individuals to appear and less resistant for supportive, enriching interactions to manifest. Tension release cycle. Rising stakes relief revelation. Consider the consequence of ignoring this truth. You will continue to exhaust yourself, not just financially, but emotionally and spiritually. That knot of resentment will tighten, and your sense of self-worth will erode further, turning your life into a constant battle. This is the catastrophic outcome if you persist in blaming the external. But there is a way out, a relief revelation that will transform your entire financial landscape. It comes from actively cultivating a new internal state that makes being drained an impossibility for your consciousness. In the next 5 minutes, I'll reveal how my own discovery of hidden generosity actually amplified being taken advantage of, and the profound shift I made. I discovered a peculiar paradox in my early studies. I considered myself a generous person, always willing to share what little I had to help a friend in need. Yet, the more I gave, the more I seemed to be asked for, and the less I seemed to have for myself. This was the open loop. What I discovered about my own hidden generosity that actually amplified being taken advantage of. I brought this puzzle to Abdullah. He simply said, "Neville, why? Oh, giving from a feeling of having or a feeling of having too. Is your generosity a radiant emanation of your abundance or a desperate attempt to prove your worth or avoid disapproval?" His words struck me. My generosity, I realized, was often tainted by a subtle fear of being seen as selfish or a subconscious belief that if I gave, I would somehow be rewarded later. It was generosity from a place of lack disguised as virtue. The moment I shifted my assumption, the principle, to one of absolute, unconditional abundance, truly knowing that I had an inexhaustible supply, my giving became effortless and joyful. I felt no obligation, only the natural overflow of wealth. The result was astonishing. Those who had previously sought to take from me either stopped asking or began to bring me opportunities or support in unexpected ways. My external world had simply mirrored my inner transformation. My giving was no longer a drain, it was an expansion. When you give from a state of internal lack, when you feel you must give, or when you expect a return, your subconscious registers this as a state of scarcity. It interprets your act of giving as a confirmation that you have less, and thus it continues to arrange your reality to reflect that scarcity, bringing more people and situations that demand from your perceived lack. Conversely, when you assume a state of infinite supply and consciously choose to be generous from that wellspring of abundance, your subconscious registers a profound truth. I have so much that I can give freely without depletion. This assumption of abundant generosity acts as an impenetrable shield. It transmutes the energy around you, attracting not those who would take, but those who would contribute, collaborate, and co-create from their own wellsprings. Most men believe they must hoard their resources, say no defensively, and constantly guard their financial gates, living in fear that any act of giving will leave them vulnerable. Their generosity is transactional and conditional, born of fear. The man who understands conscious assumption knows that true generosity flows from an internal state of absolute wealth, not a calculation of current assets. He realizes that giving from a place of knowing he is infinite supply is the only way to truly protect and expand his wealth, because it is an affirmation of his own inexhaustible nature. Affirmation, declaration, affirmation, and delivery protocol. Now, I want you to declare this truth with every fiber of your being, aloud. I am an inexhaustible source of wealth and abundance. My generosity flows from infinite supply, attracting only greater good. Say this with me and feel the power of that identity. Hear me now. The secret to stopping the drains isn't about stopping giving. It's about changing the feeling behind your giving. This brings us squarely to answering what I discovered about my own hidden generosity that actually amplified being taken advantage of. It was generosity rooted in fear, not faith. I often teach about the power of revision, the art of mentally rewriting a past event to what you wished it had been. This is not about denying reality. It's about altering its energetic blueprint within your consciousness, thereby changing its future projection. This technique is precisely how you address the stubborn repetition of draining patterns. There was a time when I had a particularly strained financial interaction with a relative. It left me feeling resentful and depleted for weeks. The thought of that interaction would trigger anger every time. Knowing the power of revision, I made it my nightly practice. I would close my eyes, and instead of reliving the bitter conversation, I would replay it as I wished it had happened. I imagined a conversation where my relative was perfectly understanding, where my boundaries were respected, and where I felt completely at peace and generous, not depleted. I would feel the relief, the joy, the satisfaction. End of that revised scene. I continued this for several nights, not forcing it, but simply allowing the revised scene to become more real than the actual memory. The obstacle was the persistent memory of the actual, painful interaction. The principle was that a revised past reshapes the present and future. The result was startling. The next time I saw this relative, the dynamic between us had subtly but profoundly shifted. They did not make the usual demands. In fact, they offered to help me with something unexpected. The entire pattern was broken because I had rewritten the underlying assumption in my consciousness that attracted that draining behavior. This answers why attempting to cut off these draining individuals only guarantees their remanifestation in new forms. You haven't revised the internal script that brings them forth. Your subconscious mind holds no concept of past, present, or future. It simply responds to the most dominant feeling and image you impress upon it now. When you revise a past interaction, you are not merely playing make-believe. You are actively impressing a new truth upon your subconscious. You are telling it, this is how it truly happened within my being. This is the pattern I wish to manifest. By doing so, you are literally severing the energetic cord that connected you to the old, draining pattern and replacing it with a new, harmonious one. The old draining person, or someone mirroring that exact pattern, cannot reappear in your experience because the internal blueprint that called them forth has been dismantled. Most men are imprisoned by their past. They endlessly rehash negative financial interactions, allowing them to dictate their present emotions and future expectations. They believe the past is fixed and unchangeable, and so they perpetuate its patterns. The man who harnesses revision knows that the past is mutable within his consciousness. He actively engages in the forbidden art of rewriting, understanding that by changing the memory of what was, he profoundly alters what is and what will be. He does not merely forgive, he transforms the very fabric of his personal history to serve his highest good, thereby eliminating the fertile ground for future drains. Tension release cycle. Warning reward sandwich. If you continue to hold onto the resentment and pain of past financial exploitation, you are actively inviting more of it. You are planting seeds of scarcity and anger, and the harvest will be bitter. This is the inescapable consequence. But by diligently revising just one past draining interaction, you will not only neutralize its power over you, but also activate a new pattern of supportive, enriching exchanges in your life. This is the undeniable reward of conscious recreation. Remember this absolute truth: cutting off financially draining people without changing your self-concept only creates new ones who mimic the old pattern. It is an internal game, always. My dear friend and fellow seeker, Emmett Fox, spoke frequently of the profound power of the I Am. He taught that all problems, including financial ones, stem from identifying with the limited self, rather than with the infinite Christ consciousness within. When we declare I am sick, we are affirming sickness. When we declare I am poor, we are affirming poverty. The true work is to identify with the source, with the I am that is the infinite supply. I was once facing a period of significant financial constriction, truly feeling the pinch. Despite my understanding of the law, old habits of worry would sometimes creep in. I recalled Emmett's teachings. Instead of focusing on the bills, on the perceived lack, I would spend moments throughout my day simply feeling, I am wealth, I am abundance, I am infinite supply. I didn't try to believe it with my intellect. I sought to feel it as a fundamental truth of my being. My obstacle was the temptation to identify with the temporary conditions of my outer world, the principle I applied was the self-identification with the ultimate source of all. The result was that within days, entirely unexpected checks arrived, new opportunities for lectures materialized without effort, and old debts were miraculously cleared. The external conditions simply rearranged themselves to reflect my new, dominant self-concept. The two most powerful words in the universe are I am. Whatever you place after these words, you are declaring as your fundamental identity, your ultimate truth. Your subconscious mind, being the obedient servant, immediately begins to rearrange your entire reality to conform to that declaration. When you continuously impress upon it, I am wealth, you are telling it, at the deepest level, that your very essence is prosperity, that you are the living embodiment of abundance. It then becomes utterly impossible for your world to reflect anything other than wealth. This mechanism literally transforms you from a potential target for depletion into an undeniable magnet for enrichment. Most men define themselves by their bank statements, their job titles, or their past financial struggles. They mistakenly believe that wealth is something outside of them, to be acquired or protected, and thus they remain perpetually vulnerable to losing it. The man who consciously embodies I am wealth knows that prosperity is not something he gets, it is something he is. He understands that his true financial security lies not in external circumstances, but in the unwavering identification with the infinite, inexhaustible source of all supply within himself. He does not seek wealth, he emanates it, becoming immune to external drains because he knows he is the spring, not merely a cup to be filled. Affirmation, process affirmation, and delivery protocol. Now, let this process sink into your very bones. Repeat it daily with feeling. My conscious assumption of infinite wealth creates an impenetrable shield against depletion and effortlessly manifests abundant support. Say it aloud and let it resonate within you. Here's exactly how you will begin to dismantle these draining patterns and resculpt your financial reality. Tonight, and for the next 7 nights, before you drift off to sleep, I want you to choose one specific individual whom you currently perceive as a financial drain. Don't confront them, don't even speak to them about it. Instead, in your imagination, revise one past interaction with them that left you feeling exploited or depleted. See it, hear it, feel it exactly as you wished it had happened. See them supporting you, expressing gratitude, or simply being entirely self-sufficient and prosperous in your imagination. Dwell in the feeling of relief, of financial peace, of abundance. Feel the joy of that revised scene as if it were absolute fact. By committing to this nightly imaginal act, you will, within 30 days, eliminate the influence of that specific, draining individual from your financial reality and experience an unexpected financial gain or opportunity, or you will precisely identify the hidden self-concept that was keeping them active in your experience. The shift is guaranteed. You came here believing you could be drained by others. I have shown you that this is an impossibility unless you internally assume a state of depletion, a belief we have now challenged and begun to dissolve. You believed cutting off financially draining people was the solution. I have revealed that doing so without changing your self-concept only creates new ones who mimic the old pattern, a futile exercise we have now transcended through inner work. You believed wealth was a limited resource that others could take from you. I have demonstrated that this assumption is the very creator of the drain, and that true wealth is an inexhaustible identity you embody, a truth we have now made tangible. We've answered why attempting to cut off these draining individuals only guarantees their remanifestation in new form. You were addressing the shadow, not the source. We have uncovered the single most common self-concept that acts as a magnet for financial exploitation that you're unknowingly broadcasting. The feeling of obligation or the need to prove worth through depletion. And you now understand what I discovered about my own hidden generosity that actually amplified being taken advantage of. It was giving from a state of lack, disguised as virtue, which only perpetuated more lack. Now the choice is yours, as it always has been. Will you continue to blame others, to suffer the indignity of depletion, forever wondering why your efforts never accumulate, forever chained to the external drama of perceived drains? Or will you courageously step into your true power, claim your inner authority, and assume the self-concept of infinite wealth, transforming your entire world from one of lack to one of effortless abundance? This truth is eternal. If you found resistance in any part of this message, or if the old patterns begin to resurface, play this again. Return to this daily until the truth of your own creative power becomes so deeply impressed that the concept of being drained becomes an impossibility for your consciousness. You are the source, you are the infinite, now go and claim it.